At the moment, it's I'm in Cogger right now, so I guess it's the beach just down the road.
Ah, see.
But but
If you look at Cox, you have better chance to fish.
no, that's not true. But yeah, I used to live in St Leonard's. I know. Look, it depends on where you live. People in the admin team live at Manly, so it's more so like how long what you want to take to get to work.
That's the other thing, yes, exactly.
Hanks decided to live away from his work by living in the city.
But close to Cox, that
Yeah.
is my condition. I never want to be more than 500 meters away from Cox.
Well, you're gonna have to move soon because we're moving.
Ah, really? Did you? Where to?
Uh,
Talk to me.
we're moving to the rocks.
To the rocks?
Yep. We're gonna have a better view than you.
A better view. But you would have no access to any good food.
No, we'll have access to good food. It would just cost $100 for lunch.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, I'm a bit worried about that one, but yeah.
Yeah. There's a good Thai massage place.
Excellent. Great.
And if your shoulders are stiff, you might go home with a football shirt if you're even going to Baringaroo. Have a look.
Well, it's targeting people that can afford very expensive meals.
I know that's the thing with Grimshaw. Everybody's Grimshaw, so you can have for Heights. They offers nice views, perfect for the harbour in the pier,
Yeah.
but no. Okay, so going on, I thought actually, that's the
So they're considering reviewing electives. So does that mean there could be some potential to suggest some electives? Or there's because there's too many people wanting to do electives, right? Like create an elective.
At the moment, they've got too many electives, but they're not enough electives.
Yeah.
So we
What?
try to,
Not enough.
well, we've got too many of the same ones.
Right. Okay.
So we've been looking into if we can reduce the amount of electives, which is just your writing electives that you typically would examine,
Sure.
and then we have a good landscape of what electives exist. So we just will look into what new electives do we offer.
Sure.
Okay. Yes. I have a question. Is Bill environment courses still open for this year? So I'm looking at Bill 0017, the business data point. Is that still running this year?
I would not know. I could look by myself. When
Bill 0017 W.
so the best thing to look into it is the last version of 2019. There is
Uh,
now 2021 version.
What's that? Chicken? Kutsushita. Kutsushita.
The last time it ran was in January 2021, so it's a summer term elective.
Yeah.
So there is a good chance that it would run again in summer again. It has always run in summer. So if you're going to go to the Facebook and look into this here, and then you're going to go to timetable, you can really see when the courses are on the run. Yeah, seems to be always the summer.
Yeah, but I can't find the course outline though. It keeps directing me back to the field environment homepage.
Okay, this one here.
Because I'm quite curious as to the us on this course.
But then get in contact with Christian Teets, and Christian Teets is the course convener, and simply write him an email and say, hey, can you get the course online? I'm interested in the course. I would like to know more about it.
Okay, right, that's fine. But on your opinion, tried this course before? Because it seems like it's quite
But I talked with Christian. Well, our bottle design is just like application design tool. I think they wouldn't really care so much about what the product they use. They just care more about how you use a marketing strategy, how you write a design print, a team proposal,
Right.
invoicing, stuff like that. So I think it's probably a quite useful course to do.
because assuming it's still, hopefully it's still running after the marriage of the faculties and stuff like that. I'm still not too sure how that's going.
Well, BIM courses will probably still run.
Aren't they part? They're not part of the faculty, right? Or are they?
Industrial design is part of the faculty.
No, but
Industrial is part of
Bill's not part. Isn't Bill part of a different faculty? No.
is part of the faculty of
Sure.
and in the past students needed to do 2 BIM courses
Right.
also. Now,
So these are quite new or relatively new.
These are not the regulation that the field courses are no longer can be prescribed elective is now a month old or so. I think the university will send out notifications in short time. What it means for 2022, and then I will then respond to you that and send out an email and say, okay, for any computation science students from 2022 onwards, these are the two field courses you have to do without core courses. And then in 2022, I will need to restructure the computation science degree to make sure that we don't have field courses anymore, but we've got two more studios, design studios in year three. And most likely they will do exactly what the field course has done before. In T1 in year three, computation design studio where you design and you make and fabricate using the robot. In T2 is a computation design studio for urban, where you design urban forms or an urban proposal.
Cool. Thanks for the clarification.
Pleasure. But it's all in process at the moment. The only thing I know for 2022 is that we cannot force students anymore into prescribed electives because electives in general will change. That's also a subject of discussion if there are important electives and general electives or there's only one thing to decide. It's all in flux at the moment. But we know already that fields are no longer allowed or able to prescribe electives if they've been listed as electives, but they're listed as core in area architecture and section design. So we've got for 2022 a few courses as core courses in elective section.
Right, cool. Thanks.
Good. Other questions? No? Then I leave you here with Andrew again. And all the best, stay safe, stay indoors, or in your LGA, and hopefully see you after the 2 weeks lockdown, but we only have a 2 week lockdown, not longer.
Isn't it longer already?
Who knows really? They had 22 new cases, I think.
Yeah, there's no way it's gonna go for 2 weeks. But we're not allowed to talk about this stuff, right, Hank?
Well, we could talk about it. I'm not really sure if we can predict the future, but I think it will be longer.
No, I mean, there's signs all over the university saying like, don't talk about COVID to your students.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, you haven't seen those? You haven't seen those signs? Okay, it's the home screen of the computers in the lecture theaters. It sets out like rules of like what you can talk about with COVID.
With COVID.
Don't.
We can't talk about COVID, we can talk about other plagues.
Oh yeah, you know the rat plague currently. I reckon that will go for another, at least more than 2 weeks. An ex- yeah.
Okay, stay safe. Bye bye.
Bye, Hank. Thanks.
See ya.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Did anyone have a look into how to test if something is clockwise or not? No? No one did?
Sorry, come again.
So, look, I'll draw something and we'll talk about it. It doesn't sound like that. It's all good. It's not important because we're going to solve the problem today anyway. I'm just interested in if anyone actually found a solution to the problem. So the problem is, if I draw a shape like this, or a shape like this, How do we tell if what like if you were watching closely, you would have noticed I drew one counterclockwise and one clockwise. How can we get the computer to understand what clockwise and anti-clockwise is? The vectors of what?
So let's say you go in one direction. Shouldn't all the vectors also go in one direction?
No? What do you mean? So, what do you what do you mean?
Okay, so let's say you're going clockwise, right?
Right?
So if you go clockwise, shouldn't the y-axis always be pointing outwards?
For what?
Let's say if you're like rectangular going out.
So, the vector we're saying if this one here is clockwise, then the vector is pointing y, and then this vector is pointing that's not pointing y, and then this guy's definitely pointing negative y, and then that one's in the x direction. Is that what you mean?
I mean, like in relation to each of them.
Right. So you mean like the angle between the two?
Can I get a control, please?
You should be able to annotate, I think. There should be a annotate button at the top.
So let's say we're going this way, right?
Yeah.
So there's three axes, isn't it? So one,
You mean X, Y, Z?
yeah, it goes one way up.
Yeah.
So
You mean there's a plane? Yeah.
so like let's say it's like this right now. This is Z, but when you move this over to this way, everything stays the same. Looks like that. And there's always going to be one vector that points to outwards. But if you try the other way, then it's going to point inside.
So how do you know? How do you know which way the vector should be pointing? So when I draw a vector along this edge, right? What does the geometry know to say that the vector should be pointing this way, or it should be pointing this way?
Wouldn't the start point be like first on the list, and then the end point is second? Or however that works? Is it like a base plane?
Right. So if you were to ask if I was to get you to generate the base plane for this curve, like if we ask Rhino or Grasshopper to spit it out, and we get it to do the same thing for a curve that is like reversed, then the base plane is going to be relative to the curve. So the vectors that it produces are still going to look the same, even though the curve is clockwise or counterclockwise. Does that make sense? Like if we take this piece of like this placemat, like the cork on one side is facing up, and so I can put my hand on it. The hand flips with it. It stays relative, which means everything on it is relative. Like the fact that we're looking at something in the XY plane is a very it's kind of abstracting something that the computer doesn't necessarily care about. So and the other someone Amelia, I think, mentioned the start point.
Yeah.
So just can you finish your point?
When you're starting like a polyline, it like creates like start and end points. Wouldn't you just be able to like find it? Like if you put like a point in the middle, couldn't you just find the points in relation to those points?
So if we put a point in the middle,
Yeah.
yeah.
Couldn't you just say like on the left, I think is the first line that you started. Wouldn't you just be able to find
Yeah.
it would go to like top right, etc., etc., and then couldn't you
Yes.
It'll be around the corner. This little white number.
Yeah, wait.
So you're right. That is one way of doing it for a rectangle.
But if it was any other object, it would be.
Sorry.
And
Yeah.
is this like right-hand rule stuff that you're talking about, or?
No. But it is similar. So if we had a shape like this, then if that was your first point, sorry, I'm just harboring a daycare disease. Then we've got this issue, right? Because the points, if you sort them in a clockwise order, it's not necessarily going to tell based on the center. Sorry. It's not necessarily going to give you the right information. But you guys are thinking the same way I did once upon a time. And it's, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but there's only one way to do it that's perfect. And that's using this function. Are we going to let me make it bigger? If you compare in order the second point to the first point, it's x and y conditions relative to a plane. So if you subtract the second point from the first and times that by the second point's y value plus the first point's y value, we'll get a response. So let's just do that. Let's do it here. So if I break these two curves up and we get the start point of each of these segments, and the only reason I'm doing that is that this repeats, so this will give us 4 points, whilst this will give us 5. If we take the first point and we compare that to the second, I'll just do this. We break up the point vectors and we use this function. So we can actually write this function with an expression. The only thing is we're going to use x, y, z, u in order. So x minus y times z plus u, and so x2 goes in the first one, then x1 goes in the second, then y2 goes in the third, and y1 goes in the fourth. Then we're going to get a response that gives us, and in this case, a completely, it's responding with 0. So here you can see 160. Why is it responding with 0? That's the question. One of those numbers is going to come out as 0. Is it? Yeah, that's good. Okay, so we're getting 0 there. If we do that system for all edges, so rather than getting the first point and the second point, we instead do the first point with every corresponding next point. So we shift the list by 1, and we also wrap it. That's going to give us a set of numbers that are, when added together, are either going to be positive or negative. And those positive, like the difference basically is if one's negative, which I believe is this one, if it's negative, then it's counterclockwise, and if it's positive, it's clockwise. And that works for any shape, relative to a plane. So, what one is this one? This guy is clockwise. And if I did draw that clockwise. Look, I'll draw another clockwise shape, and I will draw a counterclockwise shape, and we will drop them in. Clockwise, counterclockwise. So we can do maths expression. X is larger than Y. Oops, is larger than 0, not Y. True and false, and look, we can actually probably just do this. So 0 is counterclockwise. Actually, we don't even need this. Clockwise, counterclockwise. So in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Counterclockwise, clockwise, 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 counterclockwise. And we can make really, really complicated things that end up. And when I say complicated, they can be that they can self-intersect as well. And we should be able to get counterclockwise, right? So this is doing a reasonable job at working out whether or not our systems are, like, our geometry is clean or not. So, has anyone mentioned to you what is considered the appropriate direction that something is drawn by a computer? No?
I think so.
Okay. Have you guys have all done like year 10 maths?
Assume, yeah.
Like it's mandatory for everyone to do year 10 maths, I think. Isn't it? Yeah. So just to remind you guys, the equation for a circle, one way of writing the equation for a circle is using Pythagoras. So like if I just draw a triangle right now, so the unit is 1. Like the hypotenuse here is 1 long, and we can put like a value for an angle in. So we could use the tangent to draw a circle, but we can also, oh, that's not the hypotenuse. My apologies. Everyone must think I'm an idiot. But we can use like x squared plus y squared. No. So yeah, x squared plus y squared equals the hypotenuse, right? So if the hypotenuse equals 1, what am I doing wrong? Yes, you're right. You're right.
H squared.
If the hypotenuse equals 1, no, we're going to have to use tangent. Either way, this is going to take too long to deconstruct. But what I'm trying to get at is when we use like the tangent function to, like if we step tangent up from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, etc., etc., the position of the point that that draws is, if assuming that's 1, like the first point that maths function will draw is here, and that maths function will draw then the point, like, let's actually draw it, so on and so forth, right? And it's counterclockwise. So, and most maths functions like cosine, tangents, using things like basically things that draw things in a that are closed, are drawing them from the position of like you start at like a positive, or you start at 0 and it usually goes up. So we're usually starting along the y-axis of 0, and it's drawing in this direction. It usually doesn't draw in a negative direction. Once it gets to a certain point, it then draws in the negative direction. So that's why we generally see most computers most geometry functions want to draw things counterclockwise. So just to demonstrate that, and now I really hope Grasshopper doesn't screw me over here and make me look like a fool. If I chuck a rectangle into this system, the rectangle comes out counterclockwise. If I chuck a polygon in there, it comes out counterclockwise. So Grasshopper is by default drawing everything that's a polyline. Like if I even do a circle, and this particular script won't work with circles, but we can convert the circle to a polyline. Throw that in, and that's going to come out counterclockwise. So if Grasshopper's thinking about everything as counterclockwise as default, then we should be considering that a clean piece of geometry is counterclockwise. So let's leave it there. So if it was flipped, it's not drawn properly, then we just need to add a little thing at the end that rather than, so this is saying if it's clockwise, which means if it's true, this is coming out of A. If a curve comes out of A, flip it. And if we've got more than one curve, then if it's coming out of B, so if it is clockwise, so it goes through out of B into 0 and it does nothing, but at least it's being woven back together, and we can use that same pattern to bring all our geometries back together, just in case we've got something like this now. Oh no, what have I done? Something's wrong. Okay, we've just got to unflatten this geometry. So the list that we want to flatten, the list we want to compare to, and there we go. Okay, so that's using a false, true, false, true, false, true. It's flipping these three curves that were drawn clockwise, and it's not flipping the counterclockwise ones. So what that means is when we go to actually draw an offset, if we draw an offset for these curves here, you can see some are going out, some are going in, out, in, out, in. But once we've cleaned these up, they should all be going out, right? They've been standardized to all be counterclockwise. Is that making sense? Or does that not make sense to anybody?
I mean, that makes a lot of sense when you put it like that, but I think I'm still a little bit stuck on the math at the beginning.
Okay, so the mat, you mean this?
Yeah, because I've been playing around with that.
Okay, so it's effectively calculus. It's a really simple version of calculus. What it's doing is it's measuring, like it's measuring the area within a graph. Like if you think about these x's and y's, like we have actually map them. Hang on, let's just bring one of these back. What did I do? I deleted the wrong thing, didn't I? Y minus x. So it's effectively drawing a graph that looks like this. So the graph's, you know, somewhat mathematical in that it's, you know, it's got coordinates and it's measuring the area like underneath that graph. And so the area underneath this particular one is positive. Whilst if we choose another curve, come on, are they all going to be positive? Sorry, just to clarify. See the direction of this line, these lines. Yes. So they're all positive, right? The gradient in terms of, like, you know, when we're thinking about calculus. And then we hit this guy. See how they're all negative gradients? So we're basically getting all the gradients, which is a simple way of thinking about calculus. Gradients are just simplified calculus, and we're adding them all together. And so, because you could look, we can have, like, I'll draw a complicated shape now. Like, you can see that there are some negative and some positive gradients there, right? But for, like, if you're going to have any type of shape that is clockwise or counterclockwise, it has to be it has to be either strongly going in one direction or another, or otherwise it won't close. Do you know what I mean? So you have to have at least some, like, more positive gradients within that system to be able to get it to be closed in a clockwise fashion. or you've got to have more negative gradients for it to close in a counterclockwise fashion. And we're just analyzing what's the biggest set of gradients to get you to that point, right?
Okay, so it's basically looking at overall how positive or negative is this object's gradient.
Yes.
Okay.
And
I sort of understand now, but I'm gonna have to play around with the font. Thanks, Andrew.
no problem. It works. It only works on closed objects because like you can assume that this is how something closes, but like what's the inside and what's the outside of these shapes, right? Like is this defining a concave or a convex curve? We can't know that unless there is like a way to close it off, right? So that's and therefore like it's not necessarily going to work. You might have quite a lot of positive or negative geometries that are like this thing has to close this way, so therefore it's counterclockwise. No, it's clockwise. Sorry, but it's probably full of lots of little counterclockwise directions based on the gradients that will confuse it unless it's not closed. So if I'm sending you guys, a shape like this, and it's not closed, so let me redo it. That's going to be a problem, and you don't want to manually modify your script to deal with that. So part of this like washing of the geometry is also to say, okay, can we need to put in some checks. So we need to say, is it closed? No, it's not. Okay, so let's not send that through. It's a null, and that will result in an empty result. And you're gonna see that with a lot of your scripts in the future when you're working with other people, that even though you've asked people to do a closed polyline, they're not gonna draw a closed polyline. I drew something earlier that might cause a problem for you. Can you think of something that might cause a script a problem? Just as simple as someone drawing a shape. So one is it's not closed. One is that it's not counterclockwise. Yep, that's exactly it. So if we draw a self-intersecting shape, that's going to fuck up, certain processes that we work on. So we can test for self-intersection using curve self function. Is that going to run? Is it closed? Ah, my bad. I used periodic. Okay. So as long as there is any point in this list, so if we measure the length of the point intersections, as long as this is x is larger than 0, then as long as it is 0, it's good. So we can put that here, and we can combine these two, the closed and the self-intersection. We can do an AND. and that will prevent bad geometry going through. Cool. Can you think of any more? Can anyone else think of some more? There's only one more that I'm going to mention, and it's not one that we're going to solve. Come on, think about it. What are these shapes representing currently? Anyone? Right. So what is something that we might be ignoring that you could do to a floor plate other than, not close it or have it self-intersect? Now, this is just so you're aware. This is the exercise that we have to use. We have to do every time we're writing a script that is going to be used like in a robust fashion. It has to do as much work as possible. It has to take as many inputs as possible. So someone is going to ask our script to do something that we haven't considered. So what is something that we have forgotten that some people might ask the script to do? Yeah?
Is it if the shape is not a planar shape or something
Oh,
like that?
yep. That's actually a really good point, but I forgot. So yes, you're right. But so planar, we can just add that as another check. So this will tell us if it's planar. There we go. One more. But good thinking. We can also potentially we can clean it up. We can say, hey, this always has to be on the XY plane.
Is it when you have multiple groups?
You're using the right word there, but what do you mean?
So like let's say your floor plate itself is broken into like multiple sections.
Right?
And then it runs. And when it hits the line, it's going to.
So yeah, let's just assume that they're drawing the extent of the floor plate. They're not splitting it up. What's something that you've seen in buildings where it's it could be a little bit unusual. And no one? Okay, let me open something up, and then
Is that just like the grave sitting on like
no. Can you guys see my? Can you see my screen? Yes. Yes. Right. So if I was to draw that in Grasshopper, in Rhino, how would that look? Right.
So is it the fact that it's not connected to anything it's problematic?
Yeah, well, like the way a curve is understood, a curve, these are two separate curves, right?
Yep.
How does Grasshopper know that these are meant to make a floor plate and that like how does it know those two are the same floor plate and that one is separate?
It doesn't.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't it doesn't understand the relationship between two objects. You can you can do lots of different things to it. Like we can put properties on these two curves so that it knows one's the right way. I mean, the one's the external boundary, one's internal, or whatever. They're part of a group, but it's very hard to say, okay, that there is meant to represent a building with a hole going through it. The problem is, so some computer systems rely on the fact that the outside curve is counterclockwise, while any curve that's producing a hole is drawn clockwise. So so you can use that way to communicate the information, but not everybody draws. Like if you're getting inputs from humans, those inputs aren't necessarily going to be right, and it's going to be hard to clean the geometry up to know what one's good and what one's bad. We can detect if a curve is inside another curve, but it just gets a bit messy. So the way that you solve that is you actually write this script rather than taking a curve to actually take a surface, because a surface knows what is what is solid and what's not. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to make our scripts run on buildings with holes in them currently. But does that make sense? There's like potentially infinite different. Fuck off. Okay. Sorry. There's infinite. There's infinite potential mess that can go into this. And we're just gonna deal. We're just dealing with the most common ones. Cool. So, sorry, I'm just gonna have to respond to this. Okay. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. So is that all making sense? We've got to do some kind of cleanup, and that's why, like if we look at the script that we did last week, there was like the system wasn't working because it wasn't able to tell whether or not a curve was concave or convex when like comparing to clockwise or like a counterclockwise system. So now, if we run our scripts through this cleaning uh, script, then that will clean that up for us. Cool. So what we're going to do now is actually start talking about some of the standards, like standard of data that is going to be provided between me to you, and you guys, that should hopefully start a conversation between your group to work out how you guys are going to work. So let's say I'm giving you guys a footprint of a building. That's at least something you know that's going to happen. What other information do you think I need to give you for you to be able to actually build a building.
Will the side curve be at ground level?
So the boundary.
Yeah, like where if we're making facades, is it just will there be entries, exits, like everything, or
No, you
is it underground?
you get to decide that.
Yeah.
You're designing the building. But so when we say boundary, are you referring to maybe the road? You want to know, what side of the building actually has a road?
Yeah. And maybe like I suppose the elevations are part of the boundary, just for a point.
What elevations?
So like in terms of Sydney, there's buildings that'll be on like a slanted street,
Sure.
so that would count for
The
where.
the term we use for that is topography. Sorry.
Okay. Do we take care about setbacks?
No.
Height?
Yep. Now, what's something when we say height? There's a few things that we need to worry about with height. So, height means what for some people? Height. The total height of the building is important, right?
Floor height?
Yeah. Floor to floor height is also important, right? Why would it be important? Pardon?
Make the floor height balance.
Well, if you're drawing a facade, if you're modeling a facade on a building, and you've got you need to know where the floor is, because you don't want your facade finishing here, right? You want it sort of you might want your facade to line up with where the structure is to hold the building up, right? Cool. Now we're gonna get into a bit of a chicken and egg situation, because some of the information that you could be asking for might be information that you guys produce. So, what's something that you could produce now based on this information: the boundary, the roads, the topography, the height, and the floor-to-floor height? What's something all buildings need to have? Are you sure? Now, what do you need to hold the roof up? I'm gonna rephrase everything you say. Structure. And so therefore, in a conventional building with structure, what is that building going to have as a design element? Sure. But what else? What did we place our columns on last term?
Structural grid.
Yes. A grid. So, I think you guys can work out what the grid is. I'm not going to tell you the grid. Okay? What do you mean? No, the grid's good. So you should be generating the grid. So therefore, the grid is going to generate the structure. It's going to determine where the fire stairs might be. You guys have already written a script to work out potentially where a fire stair might needs to go, right? Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Just asking, would the orientation be important?
Yes. So orientation is very important. The thing is, orientation is going to come via the geometry that's passed. So, we can actually just say, really importantly, footprint. you know, if the footprint is drawn like so, then it's going to have a different orientation, yeah? Usually, when I draw my models in Rhino, purely in Rhino, not with Revit, but just with Rhino, I draw my models as if Y is representing north. Now, Revit does it a different way. Revit will, if you want to rotate your model so that the model's actually drawing relative to north. I mean, not sorry, relative to north. So, you know, you might want your model drawn so it's nice and organized on a page. Then it's going to have a north point that's off at an angle. But we will assume some assumptions. Agreed assumptions. Is everyone happy to agree that north is Y vector? Or would you like me to provide north as an input as well? Pardon?
You said y as 0 as just north.
No, yeah, as in the Y vector of the world will be north.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yep.
Say the other alternative was again.
That I would have to provide each design a variable which determines the direction of the north.
Oh yeah, I'm happy with what Tom says. I'm just like
Cool. Okay, do you see what we're doing? We're sort of agreeing at a standard here, right? We've got some agreed assumptions. We've got things script will do. Things provided. Now, there's going to be some requirements as well. We could say the requirement is that, you know, curves must be counterclockwise, but we're also going to say, hey, you know, we're going to check for closed, counterclockwise, planar, etc. Right? Because, you know, even though there might be some requirements, these things might not end up happening. Yeah? Now let's imagine, you know, we're deep in the design and we want to make some good decisions. What else do we want to know about our building, potential building?
how many people it's supposed to host. Would that be a factor?
Yeah, it is. I think what, like, you guys are gonna know the FSR. You can work that stuff out. I think that's a very complicated value because it will probably contradict the area potentially, but so, you know, population, it could be one, yeah, but if
Not sure if I'm being too capitalized.
you a little bit, but like forget like what are some of the more universal things that apply to every building, and start thinking about not just the building, but are all of you near a window right now?
Yeah.
What can you see?
Sunlight.
The sun? Yeah, so if you can see sun or daylight, is there anything blocking that sun or daylight? context, right? So if we've got context, what are the things that affect context? Neighboring buildings. Neighboring buildings are going to block access to sun. What else might block access to sun?
Location where
Vegetation. Yep, so you're already getting that via the orientation. Your building will also, like when you're doing sun daylight, your building's going to shadow itself as well, but you know where that is. Okay, yeah, so yeah, you're right. So neighboring buildings and trees are usually the things that are going to block sun the most. The other is the topography. The thing is, we're gonna to make this particular assignment and course not a complete nightmare for you guys. We're going to assume that the ground is flat. Okay. Is everyone happy with that?
yeah.
We're also going to assume another thing, that there is no basement. Is that everyone happy with that one?
Sounds good to me.
Cool. So, topography could cause shadows, but we're going to ignore that one. Is there any other thing that people care about with what's outside the window? People don't just want to have access to daylight and sunlight. What else do they want access to?
Sun.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, there can be acoustic issues.
The wind.
Yep. There's acoustic context. There is, let's call wind weather. These are usually things that we want to avoid normally, right? Weather is usually could be a good or bad thing. Acoustic's usually bad. No one wants their building, like what noise is happening outside that you want to hear. Is that, like, we're hitting all the senses, right? We're hitting hearing. We're hitting feeling, thermal, tactile feeling. Is there anything else? Yeah. The view. Is there something bad or good that we want to avoid or encourage people to have access to visibly? So view could be landmarks, so it might be water views or a view of something pretty like a mountain or the opera house or a park, etc., etc. So I think, look, we've sort of like blown this out. Do you guys want me to provide all this information per design?
Do we have some of the end ones be perhaps like the script can run without them?
Yep. So look, you can ignore this information, but then we're going to consider. We're going to consider, well, you had the information, but you've ignored it, So like, you're saying, like, can we make it so the script runs ignoring acoustics?
Well, I guess, or just for those last three specifically, I know I'm going to struggle to get everything done, but like
Yeah.
the
Look,
last three would be the most challenging.
there's a lot of information here. There's a lot. So the thing is, what I'm interested in is just knowing is is this enough information that you guys feel like you've got enough to do what you're interested in? Like if someone actually wants to design a, a facade that responds to a bad acoustic scenario, then we can put that in.
I mean, Andrew, for yourself, like you have more experience. Is there things that's missing there that like we might need? Something that's there?
Oh, there's a lot that's not there, but it's unrealistic to expect you guys to do it. Like there's um, earthquake conditions. There's there's safety. So if you're in a environment that might end up being violent at certain times of the day, then you want to design for that. Um, there's a lot. Look, let's not get into it. But look, this is really good because we have to talk about some of these things now. So we have a footprint. We need to agree on how that footprint will be provided. So what's the typology? What is the class of object that will be provided for you as a footprint? This is a really low ball question.
Both polylines.
Good, love it. I feel like we should be taking this now into like a spreadsheet. Does this exercise make sense to you guys? Like why we're doing it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
It does.
Good. Come on. Is it gonna let me? Okay, good. Closed polyline. Guess what? Is this going to be a single object or is it going to be multiple? Like, is it going to be a list of closed polylines or is it just going to be a closed polyline?
We could have closed polyline.
Just a single one?
Yeah.
I think that might be easier. So what we can do is divide it that way.
Yeah, no, you're perfectly right in saying that. So we're going to be saying that the script that we're writing is only going to work on one building at a time, right? That's what we're saying. If there's another polyline somewhere else, then we would say, well, that needs to be run by itself. It can't. We shouldn't be running two at the same time, or at least we're not gonna aim to extend ourselves too much for this one, right?
Yes, please.
There's only going to be one boundary, right? And what's the geometry of the boundary going to be? It's really easy. It's staring you in the face.
The polyline?
Yeah. Guess what? Building footprints could actually be polycurves. They can have arcs and splines in them, but we're going to say no. This is only going to work on polylines for now. But we know boundaries defined by councils and whatnot internationally are always polylines. They never use arcs or splines. It's always straight lines, always. So
Hey Andrew,
yeah,
sorry, could you explain again the difference between footprint and boundary?
the boundary is the site. So the building can exist on a site without, it's not the extent of your site. Like if you think of a residential house, doesn't go up against the boundary of the land that it's on. Sometimes it does, but it usually doesn't do it to 100% on every side. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
yeah,
Oh, so okay, so right, the footprint's within the boundary, and the footprint's
yep.
makes
Okay, so there is one thing that we're going to assume, some assumptions that we're going to make about this though. The building is going to be a simple extrusion. No changing setbacks or podium. Assumption. So just to explain, an assumption is something that you previously to doing it, you've made a judgment call, and like for example, what's a good example of an assumption? When you get out of bed, you've assumed that the floor that you're about to walk on hasn't disappeared. You've assumed that it's still there. That's a really safe assumption. An unsafe assumption is that people won't react badly to when you insult them. So you can assume that people won't. You go around insulting people, someone's eventually going to react badly to that. So these assumptions are almost like things that we've decided altogether, and in the future we might have to change our script to be able to deal with the fact that the building isn't going to be a simple extrusion with no changing setbacks or podiums, cantilevers, etc. But the buildings that we're going to work on for this are just going to be extrusions, because otherwise most of your work is going to blow out if it isn't a simple extrusion. So we want to achieve something that is possible before the end of the term. Roads. How am I going to describe roads to you guys?
One or two sides that are facing the road.
So they're going to be, what type of geometry is it? Well, what type of object is it going to be? I'd rather just draw you a line. Can I draw a line instead?
With a curve.
No, as the center of the road. It's because that's how roads are drawn, or they're drawn as open. They're usually drawn as open polylines. And there's going to be, n+1 roads, right?
Andrew, when you say you're going to draw a line for the road, is the line representing the middle or the closest?
The center.
Oh,
Is that okay?
yeah.
Yep. There's something else. Do you need to know anything about the roads or not? You just need to know where they are, because you'll get that from the geometry. Do you need to know anything else?
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, it's a real question. Cast your mind back to last term. What do,
Is it 4 points?
what do we what did Yeah. So what's important to know about roads? You said did what was the first word you said? No. Let's forget that one. How many does the type of road change potentially how you want to access the building? You know, if we had an alleyway and a major road next to our building, which one are you going to put the main entry on? You're going to put it on the alleyway or the major road? So, do you want to at least know the class of road? Okay. We look. You'll get in the hang of this thing, right? Is there any assumptions we want to make about roads? No. Topography. We're not doing topography. It's gone. Heights. So, in particular, floor to floor heights. How would you like that?
Andrew, sorry, back on the roads.
Yep.
Assuming we're driving on them, right?
Yes, we're in Australia. What would that change? What would that change about your building?
I guess it would just change how the parking works, like how people get in and out of the building.
How?
Let's say you want to put like a car park, right?
Right?
Make sure it goes in one direction or easy access from different main roads.
Yeah, that's one way, but we're not going to do that. Okay? Do not deal with cars in this. It's a nightmare. There's no basement, so you don't need car parking. The only reason that that type of thing matters with like which side of the road you're driving on, is when roads are one way, and that would normally affect the turning circle of how the car gets onto the lot, and that's also usually already been determined by the council. But yeah, it's fine. It's good to think about that. It's just a bit too much info. Floor to floor heights. What's that going to be? This has lots of different possible responses.
Could be a divided line.
It could be, yeah, you're right. Like as in a lot, like a bunch of line segments.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Assuming that they're the same height.
it it could be that.
You could run a series to have like.
It could be, but let's say no. I'm not going to give you a line. Could it just be a list of floats?
Maybe. Oh, if you're saying like you're just moving it up, like a Z direction or something.
Yeah, well, so it could be. So for a really simple building, we could just say, hey, the floor to floor of every floor, like every floor is 3 meters, and so it goes 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, right? So we could just say it's a fixed number.
Okay.
If we do say that, we would also need number of floors as a variable, right?
Yep.
So we could instead then do a list of like elevations, and the list will then tell you how many floors there are.
Yep.
Yeah? Now, when we say elevations, we could be using like a float. So we could say, okay, here's the first floor is at 0, and then the second floor is at 2,500, and the third floor is at 5,000, right? Thanks, Excel. Google Sheet thingy. But we could is there any other way that I could give it to you? Would you prefer it as just numbers, or would you like it as another way?
I'm fine with numbers, but I don't know if anyone wants the other way that you were talking about.
I could give you planes.
How would that differ though?
Well, it would save you having to turn them into planes. So, do you want floats? Because you're most likely that's the thing that you're going to get given by someone who doesn't know how to use a CAD package is planes. I mean, sorry, floats.
I probably personally would want floats, just so it's easier for me to work with and play around rather than a list.
And then assumption is are these going to be elevations or are they going to be incremental floor to floor heights?
Probably incremental. Wait, we want our floors to change? Equal height?
So what that means is, so as an example, earlier I did 0 to 500, 500. So that means there's a floor to floor height of 2.5 meters, right? So there's that, or I can give you the first floor is 2,500. Then the second floor is 2,500. Then the third floor is 2,500, and let's say the fourth floor is 3,000. And you guys then have to add them together to get the total height of the building. There's one thing that this fails to do, and this fails to tell you what the first height is, but we've also assumed that the first height is going to be 0, right? So we're going to do incremental. I'm going to give you a list of all the heights floor to floor. Yeah? I'll do an example. And actually, like, in reality, we'd use floats, but these will probably end up just being integers. It's not like we're going to use, 2501.233.
Have we defined the unit itself in the floors?
Yep, okay, that's another good assumption. Good thinking. So, architects regularly use millimeters. But do you guys want to use meters instead?
Yes.
Cool. Orientation. That comes through geometry, population. Can we ignore this one?
Yes, please.
Okay, sun and daylight. How do I give you sun and daylight? What's the bare minimum information I have to give you to work out where the sun's going to be located? Yep. I'm going to paraphrase what you said. Yeah. Lat long. Now, lat long is going to be, we'll say, like a list or a tuple. So the quantity is only going to be single. And so the example is, let's go get Sydney's. And tuple float. Cool. Context. How would you like your context? Do you want B-reps? B-reps are heavy. Why? So what? Like, what's the benefit you get from a B rep normally if you're working with a B rep?
There's more information than like a mesh.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, are we going to do anything to the context? Can we do anything to the context?
Only for like sunlight analysis, but you can probably do that with a mesh, right?
Yeah, we could get away with only having a mesh to represent context, because usually what I do is whenever I need to turn something like into a mesh for any of my processes, I do it last. It's the last thing I do, and I assume I'm not going to edit anything to do with that mesh. Like once something's turned into a mesh, I can't turn it back. So in this case, like if I was actually trying to edit the context, I wouldn't expect it to be a mesh. But in this case, it could be a mesh. So should we agree that I'll give you a mesh? Can you guys think of why it might be better to give it to you as something else? Okay, it's going to be a mesh. Now, is it going to be more than one mesh, or is it going to be everything just merged into a single mesh? Is it a list or is it single? List. Okay. And do you want to know anything about these buildings or not?
Less info, the better.
Really?
Well, in terms of probably like height and boundaries.
Sorry, yeah, you're going to get that from the mesh. What I mean is, do you want to know anything about the building that it can't be contained in the mesh information? Like, do you want to know what type of building it is?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
But with the type of something a lot of complication.
Yeah, I know. So I can leave it out.
Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I changed my mind.
I've deleted it.
Andrew, is there any things that we might need from the mesh?
Well, I think that there's information in your context buildings that might end up affecting acoustics or views. So, for example, if the neighboring building is a power station, then it's going to have a bad view probably, or bad acoustics.
I guess that would be important, but I think like what Tom said just then, the acoustic weather and view, I think might be a bit too much.
Yep. So what we can make an assumption about the buildings then. The assumption is that they're all either residential or commercial. Yeah? It's not like I'm going to give you a contextual building that's going to be a school, and one that's going to be a garbage dump, and one that's going to be a recycling center, and one that's going to be a shopping center and a car park. They're either going to be residential or commercial. So we can basically say, okay, they're just nice, clean cut, not disruptive buildings. These residentials and commercials do mess things up a little bit. Like, people don't want you to be able to look into their residential building, and it's just privacy and all of that. But we'll just say context is purely for solar. Yeah.
Andrew, back on number 11, when we were talking about sun and daylight, I'm not too sure as to how that would actually look like.
It would look like this.
So is it just going to be like a sun just within that location? We're not going to analyze over a time period.
Well, you know the time period.
We do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a building. It's there once it's built. It's there forever until it's knocked down. And it's not like the sun changes that much each year, from year to year.
Yeah, but the data we're going to receive is just going to be like the location of the sun.
No, it's the location of your building.
Oh, the location of the building.
Yeah, it's not the you're right. There is such thing as lat long for the sun, as in, the if you get the center of the Earth and you draw the sun's the point from the center of the Earth to the center of the sun, that intersection with the surface is going to have a lat long. That's not what that lat long means. The lat long is the lat long of your building. With that lat long, you should be able to get solar access, rows, all of the paths and stuff for the sun for that building based on that lat long. That's the minimum you need. Plus y. You need the lat long, and you need to know which direction's y, and the direction of y is always going to be, direction of north, and that direction of north is always going to be y, right? Cool. So the neighboring buildings are going to be that. Do you guys want me to include vegetation or not? We can leave it out for now if you want. Cool. Now, acoustics, weather, and view. Let's ignore weather. Yeah? Because weather's a complicated one. But if we just say acoustics and view, we can treat those as, objects that either have like a positive or negative score. So like, what's this? How do we describe it? Neighboring buildings. Points of interest. So if I was to say, okay, I'm gonna draw, I'm gonna give you guys some geometry that describes something. Let's say your building's near the Sydney Opera House, and you would, if it was near the Sydney Opera House, you want to know where it is. How would you like me to tell you where the Sydney Opera House is in regards to your building? What type of object would you like me to give you?
Point.
You want just a point.
Well, if it's of interest, that's probably going to be a central point that you want to look at.
What if the Sydney Opera House is not a point, it's much bigger than a point. What if rather than say the Sydney Opera House, what if you had a building near the Parramatta River? How would I describe the Parramatta River to you guys?
A mesh?
Yes, that's one way of doing it. Some people would also say a line, but if we were using a line, then we couldn't use a line to describe the Sydney Opera House, right? So if I provide you guys a list of meshes for things that either have a good or bad score for views or acoustics, so if I give each object an acoustic or a view score so that might look like this. So per object, view equals 0. 0 is always going to mean like not applicable. View equals 0. Acoustic equals -5. versus, so that might be the Hume Highway. Maybe it's not Hume Highway. Around the rocks and Circular Quay, there's like highway and train system and all of that. We'll say that that's not really a good view. I mean, it's like apathetic to its view, but it's got bad acoustics. And then we'll say the Sydney Opera House, that has, according to Australia, a view score of 10, and it has an acoustic score of not caring, right? Is that... Yeah, shall we? Yeah, we'll say, and it's a score of 0 means NA, scores range from -10 to 10. Cool.
Could you also give us the name of the meshes?
Like what it is?
Yeah.
Sure. Now, this is a rather decent way of structuring the information, because then at least it means that we can like we've got a list of objects, and there's going to be a list of corresponding data, and that's going to have a score. Like, it's not going to be good, bad. It's 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. Yeah. So it's a nice computer readable piece of information, and then it can store all this type of information in it as well that we need. And if you guys are looking for more stuff, like, in theory, I could also put the neighboring buildings in that same points of interest list, right? Yeah, right? You know how I said, hey, maybe the building is going to be bad for views. We might be looking, or bad for acoustics, or bad for smell, or whatever. I could also, point them all together and just, rather than calling this points of interest, we'll call this, context. And I can put in name, building, let's make this a little bit more easy to read. And we don't care about the view or the acoustics, right? And then you guys can use all those meshes to work out if something's casting a shadow. So, because the Opera House might be casting a shadow on your building, or the highway might be casting a shadow on your building. Cool. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Everyone's happy with this?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Cool. Okay. Now I'm gonna build it in front of you, or at least we're gonna make some of these things, like almost all of these things, and I'm gonna store it in a serialized fashion that is then distributed to you guys. Okay. So, sorry. Okay. Cool. Let's keep this, guys. So, first things first. We've agreed that we're going to use meters, so I'm going to set my Rhino file up so that it's meters. I hope that when you guys are writing your scripts, you use meters as well, or otherwise, something might be messy. We are going to produce a data output file. Is everyone happy with the data output file? It means that we don't have to make, a super crazy deserializer. And has everyone used these before?
Yeah.
Huh? Barely.
Like once, I used it like once.
Is this what this is code 2020 2120. Okay. No, I'm gonna call this for you guys. I'm gonna call this input. So this is gonna be So the first thing I will give you is a single. I'm going to put this off to the side. You won't be able to see it now, but this is the footprint. So let's do that. Footprint. It's too lowercase. There's the footprint. There is a boundary. Whilst I'm doing this, shall I share that folder with you so you guys can go grab the output, see if it's actually working?
Yeah, sure.
Google Drive, copy link to clipboard. If I chuck that in 2120, you guys should be able to like add this to your shared Google Drives. Everyone can use Google Drive, right?
Yes.
Like even the Chinese people.
Yeah.
Good. Just double checking. What do you mean only visible to me? How do I make it visible? Can you guys see it?
Yeah, I can download it.
I couldn't find that file in Google Drive. Do you have the correct Google Drive? Yes. You can see. Okay, cool. Oh, I get it. There's a message that's only visible to me. I get it. You guys can see that folder. If you like set that folder up so that it's attached to your Google Drive and you've got a Google Drive desktop installed, then whenever that file gets updated, it'll update on your desktop.
So you just want us to create a copy of that
Don't
file you gave us?
No, rather I'd like you to set up like a dynamic link to that file, so as the file changes, it gets synchronized. Does that make sense?
Can you reiterate?
Yes. So here in UNSW, I've got this is here in UNSW. we've got this folder. There should be a way to add, like if you right click that, you should be able to add a shortcut to your drive. So that way like I've got Google Drive desktop installed. It should synchronize onto my computer. Cool.
And we're just checking. Am I supposed to be getting a null code?
No, but we will work that out in a second, okay? So we're gonna get roads. Ah, yes, I know what's going on. Never mind. I know exactly what's happening. I need to do this. My apologies. You won't be getting null curves now. Is it working now?
I'm not sure if it's supposed to automatically update, but right now it still says footprint boundary null code.
Okay.
I'll try closing that in again.
Wait, so Andrew, that file you gave to us is supposed to input into that Grasshopper component, right?
There's a component called data output. If you right click it, you should be able to pick that file.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, eventually that should be sending the data.
Sorry, you want data input.
Yeah.
Source, and you should be able to pick that
Yeah,
file.
but we're only taking your data, essentially, like what you're putting there.
Yep, yeah, you should be receiving what I'm putting in.
If it's not updated, you can check the Google Drive link at the bottom right if it's actually sending.
Yeah, I can.
Said it wasn't working.
Oh yeah, it's working now.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, so we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. Context.
Mine's working.
Cool. Good. Name. Acoustic view. Have I given you guys red back?
I don't think so.
Okay. Have you guys seen JSwan? Is it called JSwan? I'll give you some components that might be useful to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a JSON for the context data because we've agreed that we're going to only have like one piece of information for the roads, whilst you guys need more than one piece of information per piece of context, and you also kind of need to know what that information's name is. Like if I just gave you this list, it's kind of hard to know what's going on. So if I gave you this instead, it's at least a little bit better. Why does the lake have an acoustic score of 5? Let's give the lake an acoustic score of 0 and a view score of 5, and the road. It's because I swapped it. Okay, cool. So we've got so that comes in as a list. So your context data is there. The way that you can, like, I've got a component that easily deserializes a JSON. You could write Python yourself to do it, but I've got a nice little guide here that does it, where you just plug in the the JSON and you tell it what you want. So you can say go get name, and it'll just give you a list of the stuff that you need, like that you're asking for. So view score, and it gives you the score. Yeah. So I'll chuck these two in a document. Also, what I'll do is I'll remove the password protection. And there's a little license thing that I've put in there. Cool, there's the JSON functions file. Can I just double check that you guys are all getting the data file that the data file's working?
Can you show us like what should be outputting from them?
You should be getting this.
Like impact,
North is y vector, ground is flat, there is no basement, blah 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 blah. You're getting the footprint, the boundary, the floor to floor heights, the roads data, the location, the context, and the context data. Is that confirmed?
Mine's still in the old one, but I think I'll just have to relaunch it.
Sure.
Yeah, you have to re-pull it if you don't have a Teams version.
Okay.
What?
If you don't go with desktop, like, I have to go like pull the latest one. It doesn't do it automatically.
Right. Maybe share your Do you want to share your screen just so I can see what you've got set up?
Yeah, sure. Let me just join on the right computer.
Or Paolo can share, just someone who doesn't have it synchronizing.
I just literally launched it again and it worked.
Okay.
You just have to like open Rhino again. If you
Just hit F5. That might also do it.
do I hit F5 on Grasshopper?
Yes, yeah. Well, I haven't changed anything. Also, I closed it. Sorry. Oops. No, I didn't. Okay, I'm gonna move the lake. Okay? So the lake's now in the north.
Hey Andrew, do you still need me to share screen?
Yeah, I wanna solve the problem.
Okay. Looks like this.
Can you show me the image of the meshes in Rhino? Like, how do the meshes look?
Like this.
Okay, and now where is your Google Drive?
My Google Drive. I don't have the desktop one, so I'm using it
Right.
for the browser.
So you're downloading the browser version. So do you have any other cloud-based system installed on your computer that you want to use instead?
Oh no, it's okay. I can use Google Drive, but I just have to download the thing to my desktop.
But I can see you've got like OneDrive.
Sorry.
I can see you've got OneDrive.
Yeah, I use OneDrive and also use Dropbox sometimes.
Well, does anyone want me to use that instead? Because I can. When I say instead, as well. Do you want me to use Dropbox or OneDrive as well, or at least just one of them?
I'm pretty cool either way. If anyone else wants.
What just happened?
I
Nah.
guess we can try Dropbox as well. If you want.
I think I just lost all the stuff, but that's fine. Dropbox. Yes, I have Dropbox. I can put in. New. NSW 2021.
Also, I'm not sure if the F5 was really doing anything.
Right, okay. But did the thing move?
What was I looking for again?
Just hold up. Has the lake moved to the north yet?
That's in context data, right?
Is the big flat disk in context now north of the building, or is it south of the building?
Oh,
Hold up. I'm trying to do a few things at once.
so the big flat plane in front of the, like north of the building.
Is it north of the building?
I believe so, yes.
Well, then it has changed.
Okay. That's good.
So what exactly are we supposed to be getting again?
What do you mean?
Data source?
You should be getting lots of geometries and data.
I'm getting like a shape and 2 lines. I'm using the Google Drive desktop.
Oh, you're only getting a shape and 2 lines. That's it.
For geometry, yeah.
What about? Are you getting context? Is there a context output?
There's no context output.
I've got 4 meshes.
I think Emilio's is not updated yet. Everything's going to disappear in a second for some people. Cool. Why was I opening this up again? Why was I opening this up again? So Paolo, I'm gonna move the lake again.
Yep.
It's now gonna move to the south. Let me know. Destination. Dropbox. Issue selective sync. Issue input.
I've got the things disappearing now.
Cool. Okay, you just got the nulls. Okay, cool.
That's not yet not mesh.
I think it sounds like it's got about a 2-minute lag, but that's fine.
Yeah, I think it does auto update as soon as the Google Drive file
I should have
changes.
noticed.
Which one do you have?
Well, I now have message, footprint, boundary, multiple heights, birds data, location data.
Just context.
Look at the context. Yeah, I have 4 null meshes.
Yeah, that's the correct one.
Here's a link for Dropbox. Oop. As well. Cool. Okay, so the exercise that we just went through is likely to be something that you guys also have to go through when you're working at, like, if someone is going to be writing a script that works out where the grids need to go, then you guys need to agree with each other how you're going to pass that information from one person to the other. You can either agree to do it through Grasshopper data files, like what we've done today, or there's also the potential for you guys to have like a centralized Revit model, which you guys synchronize. Have you guys used Revit as a team yet? Have you had to use BIM 360 or?
Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare, honestly, though.
Well, guess what? It is up to you how you do it. Okay, it's important that the important thing is that you describe how the information is being, like what information is being shared and how it's being shared and what the agreed assumptions or you know like basically the exercise that we did today is something that you guys need to do in your groups, and that's going to be the group, like the output of that, the agreements and assumptions and whatnots that have been made within the group needs to be documented, and that's part of the deliverable for assignment 2 and assignment 3. Okay? Like we all did it together, right? The thing is, you're going to be it's going to be your team's prerogative to decide what's important for each other and how you're going to pass the information on. Is this? I'm going to treat the dead silence as a good sign, as if you guys are, excited about what you're about to do with your assignment.
I mean, you get to experience it.
Yes. Is there any questions about this currently or not? Has everyone been assigned their particular task within the groups?
Yes.
Actually, I have a question about the assigned tasks.
Yeah, what about them?
Let's say I'm doing the roof. What exactly do I need to have as a bare minimum, or like what do you expect?
I expect a roof design. Roofs are interesting. So, this building that we're designing, it could either be a residential building or a commercial building. Just to be simple, it could be something else if your team really wants it to be. But let's say it's one of those two. What would be two defining differences between a commercial roof and a residential roof for a building like this? Like if if it's a residential building, what's going to be on the top floor?
Penthouse?
Yeah. So what's the roof's going to be the roof to the penthouse? Yeah. So that it's probably going to have skylights, and it's probably going to have some like funky geometry to it because it's actually going to be part of the architecture of the building. What else? What else? Have you ever been on a roof of a building? Ever? Anyone?
2 times.
Oh yeah. What else? How did you get onto the roof?
It was just a ladder.
Right. But are there other ways of getting onto roofs?
Yeah. Well, like, I guess you can go up via the steps. You can like open the doors.
Yeah, so I'm sure all of you have seen The Hangover. Has the movie? Do you know what I'm talking about? What why where is the guy that they're looking for? Where was he the whole time? He was on the roof. And how did they get onto the roof? Yeah, there's 5 stairs. So there should be at least your 5 stairs should pop through onto the roof potentially, like depending on your design. Like if we actually go into the CBD, it's the one thing that we get to see with buildings is their roofs. It's so easy to look at their roofs. So let's go look at some roofs. So this roof here is obviously not the most exciting thing ever. It's got a bunch of services on it.
Andrew, you're not sharing.
Oh, sorry, my bad. My apologies. here's a pretty boring roof. It's got a bunch of services on it. So like air conditioning units and whatnot. But look over there. That's got more services. It's probably also not something that we want to maybe encourage here. But yeah, you could potentially just fill your whole roof up with services. So the important thing for that is that there's a structure there that needs to hold that up, and it probably needs to be more thought out than just a concrete slab. This guy here's got a skylight on it and a bunch of services. Let's go over to the building that I showed you guys earlier today. So here's a bunch of like scissor. Oh, they're not. Are they wind? No. So they're solar panels. And then there's a big skylight on the atrium. And look over here. There is a nice little roof garden. Yeah? Or this guy has got what looks to be... These are probably solar panels, even though they're white. We can tell that they're solar panels because they're all propped up on an angle. It's got a bunch of services over the lift core. And underneath that, they've also got like a fancy... Ooh, this is really awkward to navigate. We've got a bunch of fancy, probably like roof garden area. Yeah, you can see these are tables and stuff. So it's not like if you're designing a commercial building, you're actually potentially providing the tenants of your building an area to enjoy being outside. So you can put a roof garden, you can put skylights into atriums if your building's got an atrium, etc., etc. If I jump over to just somewhere that I know, that's North Sydney. We're going on down. There's St. Leonard's. Is there a 3D model of St. Leonard's? Damn. No. Okay. Resi buildings. I don't know if I can even find one in North Sydney. Here this might be one. But here you've got, see how like if we could assume the top number of floors are sort of like a bit more fancy. So you could say, you know, hey, we're gonna reserve the top 5 floors to doing something a little bit different. You can step them back, and this is probably a bunch of services that are being packed in there, and that looks like a lift core. There's skylights, so maybe that's a pool. You might have an aquatic center on your roof. Do you see where I'm getting at, Russell?
Yeah, it seems quite flexible.
It's very flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite
Your challenge is going to be, I'm going to give you a building that changes size, and you're going to have, whatever you've come up with is going to have to respond to that.
Yeah, let's say if I do like a commercial in a penthouse, it's probably going to be
Okay.
much more of a headache than let's say it's just a bunch of utilities where I've been through.
I don't know about that, mate. Yeah, like if you're going to put utilities up there, one of the first utilities that you would put up there is the lift overrun. So that's going to be defined by the people working on your floor plan. You know, let me see if I can actually find a lift overrun. Sometimes lift overruns go into the ground on the basement, but sometimes they go on the roof. It's basically, it's needed. It's all the equipment that moves the lift up and down. So you can design that into the roof. And then, like, if you're going to put a lift overrun on the roof, then you're basically saying, hey, our roof's going to be for services. So you want to lay out, you probably want to lay out solar panels because this is a modern building that should be responding to the problems of the world, and so solar is going to be an important one. Solar panels should be oriented north, and they should be, I think the typical thing that we do is about 30 degrees, and they're typically sawtooth like this. So laying them out, and then also providing, putting them in a position that's actually good. So if you've got a neighboring building that's overshadowing at a certain time, then maybe not paying for the solar panels in a certain area is a good spot. And so therefore putting the other services like the aircon and stuff in that location's good. Like there's a lot of stuff to think about, even with services, just services.
Actually, Andrew,
Yeah.
do you think you can also give us like the minimum and maximum area, so like the range?
What do you mean?
So of the floor plate itself, could you give us
You've got that. You mean the maximum size of the floor plate?
and like minimum that you would give us?
I can give you the minimum. The minimum will be probably 20 meters by 20 meters. It won't go any smaller than that,
Okay.
but it'll get bigger. Look, I can't. No, I don't want to give you anything. I don't want to give you a limitation of the size. You can, other than it's going to be realistic.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool?
Yeah. Thanks.
I hear music. Any other questions?
I guess how much of a visual element will there be, or is it just mostly just the focus on Grasshopper and Rhino?
What do you mean?
Well, I was thinking like on my side, I guess, with Unreal, but I don't even know if that's
Well, this is,
necessary in this one.
there's going to be a building. How are you going to represent your building?
I guess, but like, I don't know if the building is like going to be that detailed to the point where I can like add, you know.
Okay, so the challenge will then be if whatever is being produced in Unreal needs to be something that has the minimum amount of manual work done. So basically you might have like an export button pressed in Grasshopper and an import button pressed in Unreal. That's enough for me to say that's minimum effort, and then Unreal is finished.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. Not like a full blown.
Yeah, because things are going to change. Like, if you think of it that way, then that's a pretty interesting exercise for you to try and complete, right? Is actually bringing together three people's Grasshopper outputs, and you can do that using data, the data output. No, the data object.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Baking that into a 3DM, and then automating a save, and then your datasmith in Unreal just needs to synchronize, right? That's pretty cool. Rather than you're just using Unreal rather than Rhino to render the output.
Yeah. I just wanted something, that I can work with better for visualizing.
Yeah, and look, that's gonna. You guys are gonna, if that's part of what you want to do, then you've got to talk with your team about how they're going to output that information back to you, and then you're going to map. You have to talk about that as part of the mapping of the information being passed from person to person as well. So that that's adding more complexity and more challenge and more discussion and all the stuff that actually ends up happening in reality. So I wouldn't say that it's a wasted effort doing that.
Yep.
Cool. in on this particular assignment, yes. There's no requirement to do presentation drawings on this particular assignment. But if you do want to do presentation drawings, then they have to be automated. There can't be any manual work done on them.
Okay, so right, okay. Also, do you have to be for this?
If you want, you can. There's nothing stopping you.
But it's not like a requirement at all.
There isn't, but why not? It seemed like it seemed to work. Like the more you use it, the more you'll sort of start to understand the power of it, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good.
But no, there is no requirement for you to use it. But yeah, I'm actually there's no limitation. So if you guys want to pull the information out of Rhino and put it into another program and process it there, then that's fine. It's just the requirement is that I'm going to open up, like I have to look at your process and see data going in and stepping through that process automatically at the end. There shouldn't be like I just need to manually bake it here and change some stuff, or I need to put some human decision making at this point. Everything has to flow through like a greased mechanical system producing a building.
Okay.
It's hard. It's really hard. And I'm not expecting architecture like this, right? Like we're talking, hey, look, here's 90% of the buildings that are ever built in the world, right? A script that, can design one of these buildings in a minute is going to have a lot of value, yeah?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. And then, once that script's done, then a team of designers can then, modify the outcome and actually make it, bespoke and architecturally designed and blah 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 blah. But there's so much in these designs that can be thought of as being quite formulaic. So let's make that happen. Plus this is going to break your brains, right? A little bit, isn't it? It's already breaking your brains a little bit.
It's more like there's just so many possibilities. It's hard to see where to actually start.
Yeah.
Actually getting a goal.
Yeah. So guess what? Set yourself a goal. If you can set yourself if you don't know where to start, set yourself a goal, and then say, okay, what steps do I need to take to get to that goal? And then as you move towards the goal, you'll realize that maybe the goal needs to shift. Yeah? So you can use an iterative process there with your goal setting. Look at this. Most people don't notice this. Do you know what this is? It's a fountain. It's those fountains that they set up occasionally to do like the water shows at Darling Harbour.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I did this. This is one of my buildings. I didn't realize that they had scanned it. This used to be an older 3D scan of Sydney, and it's only just now that I've realised that they've got the Barangaroo ferry hubs here. Cool.
This scan is still very old.
I know, but the one that I...
Yeah.
the last time I looked at, I don't think they were here, or at least
Yeah.
I didn't check. You can kind of
I know that Apple Maps photogrammetry is really up to date.
right,
Probably last year.
nice. That was a fun project. I wonder what else do they got. Sorry, I'm gonna end up being okay. So this hasn't been knocked down yet. So this is pre-COVID. This little 3D world doesn't know COVID exists. Poor guys.
And then like the ones that map is like 2009 or something. It's really old.
What over here?
Just the ones without photogrammetry.
Ah, right. Yeah, so there's no photogrammetry here, right?
Yeah.
Here's another one of my buildings. But it's not 3D.
Andrew, for these things, do you like go through the whole process yourself?
Pardon?
Do you
Me?
like participate in the whole process?
Pardon?
Like when you design those buildings, right? Are you with it from the beginning all the way to the end?
Sometimes. So with this building, yes, I worked on this building from the beginning to the end. And with this building, yes, I worked on it from beginning to the end. But I wonder if they have a 3D model of Adelaide yet.
I believe all the other cities do.
Okay, cool.
Like very.
So this building, I worked on this building near the end of its process. So I didn't really I didn't do that much on it. But this building here, the cricket centre, the indoor cricket centre, I worked on it from the beginning to the middle of the project, and then I didn't work on it from the middle to the end. Pardon?
So is that common for like individuals to work halfway through or like get transferred halfway through?
Yes, it is common. This building here, the bridge, I was part of the competition and we lost. So, like the design that I would have put in, I spent a month or two on it, but it resulted in nothing. Let's go to.
But why would people, get pulled out or like join halfway through?
Okay, well, damn. This is in Optus Stadium's in construction. So I only did 2 tasks on this building. Optus Stadium. So one of the tasks was, you can see, maybe this is a better photo. You can see the banding that had been, like it looks almost like random. That's actually an image that was then modeled in Grasshopper, but the building was being delivered with Revit, and the client had required the architectural team to deliver everything through a strict BIM strategy. So all these panels with their colorations, and they've also got perforations, varying different perforations through them, had to be modeled in Revit. And so I assisted in transferring the information from Grasshopper to Revit because the team that had been working on it didn't know how. So I was brought in to put out a fire, basically. So people in a large firm do get moved around because projects need more staff, or they don't have enough budget. They get taken off and stuff like that. They don't have enough. The project doesn't have enough work for 5 people to be working on it. So you get moved on to another job.
It sounds like you can be preparing quite a bit for like a project, and then suddenly
It doesn't happen that often because the thing is the people that have been working on the job are more valuable to the project than people who haven't been working on the job. So so the only reason someone might get taken off a job and put onto another one is because there's an emergency, or because they don't expect, like, the work has actually dried up. You know when most of the time you know when you're going to come off a job. Um, Look, like if I was working on, like I've been working on Sydney Football Stadium for like more than 2.5 years. Like, and it won't be finished. It won't be finished till the end of this year, sometime next year, and I'll be assisting with it in minor ways till then. But that means, like, for a job that I'm normally working, like I'm not always working on stadiums, and stadiums are really big, but like some projects last 3 to 4 years. That we have jobs at Cox that have been going for 12 years. Don't ask me why, but you people don't stay at the company that long. Um, interior designers, they usually see the beginning to the end of their jobs because they only take a few months to do, and then they only take a few months to build, and then it's done. And so they go through quite a lot of you know starting and completing work and seeing it being finished. Urban planners, they don't see their actual work being done until they've retired. So they might have designed a 30-year plan for Parramatta, let's say, and it's only within 30 years that that plan might actually be finished, and it may have been changed every 10 years. So there's there's like a scope of being able to see jobs being finished um, across the industry. Is that is that why you're asking? You're just interested. You want to be on a project from the beginning to the end, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was just curious because these are all really long-term projects, and yeah, I was kind of concerned when you said some project gets cancelled halfway through the middle.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is this yeah,
We were working. Cox was working on a stadium in Abu Dhabi somewhere, and the the prince that was associated with the stadium died of old age, and the stadium stopped. Like the whole job stopped because the only person who actually wanted that stadium built was that prince.
right.
Um, that's not n- normally the case. That's quite rare. But if you look at, like, the Zaha did an associates stadium that was designed for Tokyo Olympics, they got sacked. They won the competition and they designed something that was too over budget and they refused to change it, and so they got sacked. Um, we work for companies, not necessarily working for individuals, and we work for governments, not necessarily working for ministers. And so if a government changes throughout the project, then your actual department and the people making decisions on that project might change throughout. It's it's just it's a part of life, or it's a part of work when your work is usually public. You're not building something for a particular person. You're building it for the public. So you have to anticipate that um, things will change, and you won't necessarily get what you want. Um, but you should be striving to, basically, the main goal is to strive to get the best outcome for the public. I think for these types of buildings.
I mean, yeah, but it's satisfy one individual, and now we're trying to satisfy like everyone.
Yeah, It's very hard. It's hard. It's 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 so hard. It should be, it should be some almost every designer's career goal. I don't see the point of having an easy career. I don't think you can achieve much with an easy career. That's why I moved to Sydney, because Adelaide wasn't the type of place to have an exciting career as a designer. Um, so maybe that's like, if you want something a bit laid back, then move to a country town, or Adelaide or something, and you can you can kick your feet up at the pool, but you still have to go to work the next day, and do boring work, because this is not at all boring. I don't think I've done the same thing in each month. It's just new challenges, new problems, new ways of solving things every month. So, like, it's only just now that people are now asking me about Unreal, because have you guys been using Enscape? Or have you heard of Enscape?
I've only heard from Gary, but that's it.
Gary?
Yeah.
Who's Gary? Oh, yeah, Gary. I know Gary. Yep. Yeah, like, Enscape's not working for some projects. The projects are too big for it. And so it's like, well, we want like a game engine version of our buildings now. Like, that's within 6 months or a year of getting this program Enscape and it being used on multiple jobs, and it's not good enough to use on multiple jobs. People want it more, and so someone's got to find a solution for that, and they've got to learn how to use it, and they've got to, like, hence why I'm saying to people like Paolo that I think it's actually really valuable that people know how to use complicated programs like Unreal, because when user-friendly programs like Enscape fail, then Paolo's got a job, and they fail regularly. So, cool. I'll catch you guys next week. Next week we're gonna break geometry down. We're gonna turn. We're gonna decompile C's and T's and L's into rectangles. Okay?
Andrew, just before
Yeah.
could you give us some like final advice or I guess insights for this assignment?
Extend it. Always try and extend yourself, I guess. If you feel as if you're going into this assignment already knowing 100% how you're going to solve the problem that you've set out to solve, then you're not doing it right. But also at the same time, don't set okay. But then at the same time, if you try and set out to do something that's crazy, and it ends up being too difficult, that's okay. It's okay to submit something that doesn't meet the final goal, as long as you have worked to get there and have demonstrated that, then you're fine. Okay? No problem. You've always got that safety net with me, Russell. You're not gonna have me again. This is I think the last course you have with me. But don't forget, you can, if you push yourself and push and push and push. Like, I haven't actually marked anyone yet, but Russell, did you put any of the work that you did in trying to hack the password thing for assignment 1?
I did, but I just sort
Did-
of just chucked it in just for
Good.
this.
Well, that's the right thing to do.
Okay.
Cool. And this is,
Kind of sad.
huh?
We don't have you anymore after this.
No, you don't. No, you got. Sorry. You get more of Daniel, I think.
I haven't seen Daniel in a while.
Yeah, but yeah, this is our last class together. Mind you, it's our second class together. Normally you get me for 4 classes, but that changed because of COVID. Okay, I've got to go. See you guys. I'll get last week's recording up and this week's recording up soon. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.